Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to this Provost seminar on advancing climate education. My name is Matt Kaplan. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Research on Learning and Teaching. CRLT has been organizing Provost seminars for about 25 years now, twice a year, on a teaching and learning topic of interest to university leadership and the broader campus community. Each time we try to invite members of the community with a special interest in this topic. For this seminar, we've gathered colleagues currently engaged or potentially engaged in programs designed to promote climate education across campus. Our audience includes students, faculty, and staff, and we look forward to a rich exchange over the course of the morning. As President Ono said in his video last night, climate change is one of the, if not the most pressing challenge of our time, and preparing our students to play leadership roles in helping to address it will be a key priority now and in the future. Given the stakes and the need to think expansively, we are glad to be featuring remarks from university leadership, as well as students and faculty. Before I introduce Provost Macaulay to say more about this topic, I'd like to recognize the outstanding team that developed and organized today's seminar. First, Professor Michaela Zint, Associate Dean in the School of the Environment and Sustainability, has taken a lead role in conceptualizing today's seminar and reaching out widely to gather input from stakeholders and leaders across campus. Dr. Melinda Matney, CRLT's Managing Director of Educational Development and Assessment Services, worked closely with Associate Dean Zint, as well as our facilitators and presenters on the overall program. Members of the advisory committee, who are listed on the electronic agenda that you'll see the QR codes for, gave us important input that helped to shape today's agenda. And Kayla Lang, in the back there, Senior Events Coordinator at CRLT, was responsible for the many logistics from last night and from today. And finally, a special thanks to the students in Associate Dean's EAS 501 course. I think many of them are at the table there. That's Climate Change Education in Higher Education. They contributed key insights to our planning, organized a really fabulous event last night, and will bring insights from that discussion to the upcoming panel. With that, it's my pleasure now to introduce Provost Lori Macaulay. Dr. Macaulay is the William K. and Mary Ann Najjar Professor of Periodontics in the Dental School and Professor of Pathology in the Medical School. Prior to her appointment as Provost, she served as the Dean of the School of Dentistry and Chair of the Department of Periodontics and Oral Medicine. She's received numerous research awards and is a Fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science and a member of the National Academy of Medicine. She's been a champion for DE&I, receiving the Ida Gray Award for her outstanding efforts in this area. I hope these, and with that, I will turn things over to Provost Macaulay.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for your partnership on these seminars with CRLT. We really appreciate it. Good morning, welcome everyone, and happy first full day of spring. What a great day to have a talk about climate education, right? So, and actually, it seems like the weather is starting to get a little warmer for spring. I'll just start and say I echo the comments that you heard in the video from President Ono last night. He has said very clearly to our community that climate is one of his highest priorities, and I share that, and the education piece of this is really integral. I'll also say that, I don't know how many of you had an opportunity to attend events this term that I've had the great fortune to attend, really that have centered on this topic. And the first in January was with Kamala Harris and Jennifer Granholm. And one of the things that I really appreciated that they said from this was that this is a topic that affects everyone on our campus, not just people in the likely places like C's, but across our entire campus. So it's great to see people here today from the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, the School of Dentistry, C's, LS&A, engineering, we can go on and on. Really, every unit has a piece of this. So thank you for that. The other was just last week, Dr. Tedros, the Director General of the WHO, and he talked about how important climate is to health, which we all also know, but it was really inspiring. And then also last week, Mary Robinson. How many of you attended Mary Robinson's? That was just awesome. What I loved about her presentation was the level of optimism that she brought. And when we all know that this is a really challenging topic, but she brought a level of hope and optimism that we really can make a difference. And I think the work that you're going to talk about today around education is really critical in this space. So I know those of you who are here today already know the alarming science behind human-caused climate changes. And as we move forward as a campus for carbon neutrality, it's crucial that we likewise work on a university-wide culture of sustainability, and one that we can bring together, leverage innovations in operations and facilities, research, engagement, and yes, importantly, education. So thank you for joining us. Whether or not you already teach about climate change, I'm sure you're going to learn some new things, new techniques, new best practices to be able to deploy. I also want to thank those of you who are already deploying in this area, whether it's that you teach about fundamental climate science, whether you teach the range of potential innovative technologies, the market, the policy, the behavioral aspects, or other creative solutions. Maybe you're enabling your students to draw on the arts to inspire and motivate change. Perhaps exploring the assumptions and values that have led us to the crisis we face, and importantly, the path to lead us out of it. Perhaps you're working with students to help them better understand how their chosen professions are impacting the climate and how they can be future leaders to ensure their professions will adopt suitable mitigation and adaptation actions. Maybe you're ensuring that instead of succumbing to climate anxiety, our students feel empowered to make a difference on our campus and to our community. And I think this speaks directly to Mary Robinson's message. It could be that you've adopted new engaged learning pedagogies such as case studies, project or place-based learning, service learning, co-teaching, or others to more effectively and impactfully teach about addressing the climate crisis. Our challenge now becomes how to scale our collective efforts across our campus to ensure that our students don't just graduate climate literate, but that they can be leaders in this space, willing and able to serve as role models and to bring about transformative systems in their chosen careers and communities. I look forward to the work that you will bring forward from this and working with you for this collective vision that the University of Michigan takes on an international role in addressing climate change by preparing the next generation of climate leaders. One of our strengths, as you will see today, is the interdisciplinarity that we can bring to this. We're ideally positioned for addressing the climate crisis and for ensuring our students receive a comprehensive climate education. So, next you'll be learning from students who've been learning about the best practices in climate education since the beginning of the semester, as well as from our leading climate educators, Dean Overpeck and our director, Jennifer Haverkamp. And after learning from their perspectives in a panel, it'll be time to turn it over to you. How can we improve the professional development faculty receive so that our students' climate education will be as empowering as possible? How can we build closer ties between operations and facilities-focused carbon neutrality efforts, research, and education through living lab approaches? How can we infuse climate education throughout all our curricula to ensure our students gain the competencies that they need as the leaders and best, and how climate education may advance student success? We have a strong focus, and we're actually quite accomplished at having great graduation outcomes for our students. This is part of our success in student education, and we're deeply committed to that. We also know that one of the aspects that predicts student success is their sense of belonging to campus. And I think that this is a perfect opportunity to show an area that sense of belonging can be displayed, because our students are truly committed to this. And I think when they see that commitment of our university, it will show them that this is a place where they belong and where they can excel. So let me conclude by reiterating the university's commitment to advancing carbon neutrality on campus and beyond, including through climate and sustainability education. We're enthusiastic about rising to students' expectations in this regard, and express our true appreciation to all of you for your contributions to climate education. I'll now turn over the proceedings to C's Associate Dean, Michaela Zint, who, along with the other associate deans from our schools and colleges across campus, spearheaded this effort. Associate Dean Zint will introduce and facilitate this morning's panel, which I'm sure will be a great inspiration for the subsequent conversations that you'll be having this morning. Thank you again for this truly pivotal, vital work that you will do for our campus, and enjoy the morning. Wow, first day of spring and not get a your flowers. Thank you.
So if I could please invite the panel members up here. Samantha, I'll reintroduce everybody in just a minute. Samantha Barnes, Rachel Fink, Anna McCarthy, Miles Murphy, and Swati Siriam, along with Jennifer Haverkamp. Wherever you, yeah. Just pick it. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. We're so excited to have you here. I'm sure all of you have had dreams, glimmers of dreams of what might come, and have worked very hard to have them come into reality. This event is that for us. So thank you for being part of our dream. Let me set the stage a little bit for this panel right after I briefly introduce our panelists. First is Miles Murphy on the far left. Miles is a junior in LSA with a major in psychology. Then Samantha Barnes, she's a senior in LS&A in the program in the environment. Oh, junior, oops. Well, I was hoping for you. Then we have Swati Siriam. She's a Master's of Public Health student in the School of Public Health with a focus on environmental and health sciences. Then we have Rachel Fink, who is an MS student in Cs with a focus on behavior education and communication. And then we have Anna McCarthy, again an MS student in Cs with a focus on ecosystem science and management. And we're also very, very pleased that Jennifer Haverkamp, the director of the Graham Institute, made time for us again, just like she did last night, to join us this morning. Thank you all for being here and being part of this panel. Let me set the stage a little bit. When we organized this event, we had a wonderful task force advising us on how to make it the most useful for the various student, faculty, and staff participants. And one of the suggestions they had is that because folks probably cannot come to the Monday evening and the Tuesday morning event, that we needed some kind of a transition that allowed the people coming on Tuesday morning to learn about the events on Monday evening. And so that's the purpose of this panel, is to provide you with that transition between the two days. And I also want to say, last evening, the goal was to learn about the many wonderful climate education efforts that are already happening on this campus, and we're going to learn more as part of this panel, because there are amazing things happening. And there was also already the idea of getting student insights into what is their vision for climate education in the future and how we're going to get there. And that should, of course, also drive our conversations moving forward, because ultimately that's why we are all here. So this morning we're going to talk about meaningful climate education here at U of M for the students, or what we've been responsible for in our various roles. And then we're going to hear something also about their vision, so that when we move into the concurrent sessions, you've heard some of their feedback and can build on that. So please welcome all the panel members, and then we'll start the questioning. All right. So the first question, and I should also say, you don't all have to respond to each of the questions, and you can also, respond to each other and feed off of each other. So the first question is for the students, and it is, what was one meaningful experience in climate education that you've had here, or that you've heard about from others, and what made these experiences so meaningful? And as you answer those questions, make sure you turn on the mic and use the mic. You have one right there. So who wants to get us started with that first question?
I could get us started. I think one class that came to mind when I heard this question was my restoration ecology class in Cs. It was just a really good, holistic, comprehensive approach to both climate and restoration. I thought what made it so fantastic was that it was placed and project-based, so all of the restoration work that was happening was relevant to campus or the Arboretum or the Botanical Garden, so you really felt that sense of community with your classmates. And I really felt empowered that the knowledge that I've learned throughout my years could make a positive impact.
I can go next. Mine is a class I'm taking actually currently in the School of Education called Education for Sustainability, Project, Place, and Justice-Based Learning. It's a really awesome class. I know you guys are here. But it's really impactful because we're engaging with all those things at the same time. A lot of those classes that we take engage with those things separately, and just doing all those in the same room with a teaching team who has a lot of diverse experience in this area is just a really cool experience.
I have had, so because I'm in the School of Public Health and in Environmental Health Sciences, the topic of climate change automatically gets incorporated into each coursework that I've been taking up for the past 2 years. Last semester, as a part of my degree, we were supposed to do a capstone project, and the project that I was involved in was that we had to create educational materials to talk about the effects of climate change on respiratory health, and create materials to translate these topics to the community members, health practitioners, as well as just residents within the Caribbean, to really talk about how climate change or activities that have been occurring in other places around the world ends up disproportionately affecting certain communities. And being a part of public health, I know that we deal with that issue a lot, where we really do express equity issues and how certain groups or a lot of social determinants of health really gets highlighted in situations like these, especially something like climate change, when you know that it's affecting everyone, but it really gets highlighted the most within these certain communities. So I feel like that was a very insightful experience for me, and which is what ultimately also inspired me to enroll in this course and take part in this event.
Hi, everyone. I would say that one of my most impactful climate education experiences so far has been an environmental psychology class that I took last year. It was Psychology of Environmental Stewardship, taught by Raymond DeYoung. And it was just a new perspective on the environmental movement, where it stated the environmental or the climate crisis as being urgent, as being real, and then what steps can we take in order to get people to start believing in that. I mean, we hear about climate day in, day out, especially people who are in the field, who are teaching it, faculty, staff, and then also students who are in programs in the environment. But how do you get people outside of this little bubble that sometimes we find ourselves in to actually care about things that will end up affecting them or already currently affect them? And how do you present such systemic change without causing people to shut down? Because it is a scary thing. So I think it was just an enlightening way to perceive the environmental movement. And as Anna had said, this one was project-based as well, and I think that was really important for me, is just seeing how the things that I'm learning in classes can actually apply in the real world. So we worked with A20, the carbon neutrality plan for Ann Arbor, and figuring out how specific districts in Ann Arbor can go towards a path towards that, different parts of the carbon neutrality goal. So like, for example, we worked on more plant-based diets in a specific district in Ann Arbor, and step by step how they could take a progress towards more plant-based diets. And I think having that connection to Ann Arbor, the local area, has been a really important part of me learning environment in university. And I think once I take that outside, wherever I end up going after Michigan, that's a really important part. It's just, connecting myself back to where I'm going to be going, like in my local area. So that had been a really important part in that Psychology of Environmental Stewardship class, and I think that that'll definitely carry on past my education here.
For me, I'm actually in a class right now, or actually it's in like 45 minutes. But it's a physics course focused on the energy transition, and it's something completely out of my comfort zone. Most of it goes right over my head, but it's so interesting to look at it from a completely new outside perspective, and something we've talked about is, as we move forward, how are we offering climate education opportunities that are bringing in students from physics, that are bringing in students from psychology like me, that are really looking at climate solutions from every possible perspective to engage the most students in the most meaningful way possible.
Anybody else want to add something about a meaningful experience that you feel you want the audience to hear about? I know you shared your personal ones. Anything you heard last night? No? All good? All right, so we'll turn it over to Jennifer. Jennifer, maybe you can give us a few examples of innovative climate education experiences at U of M that you're proud of.
Oh boy. This is like asking me who my favorite child is. Yeah, and especially in a room full of such climate experts who I look up to. If I don't mention your class, it's not because I don't think it's wonderful. Basically, I would just say that what I'm most proud of is the level of interest and expertise that I'm now seeing around this issue at the university. It feels like we're at a turning point, and events like this today are part of, obviously, what that's about. But just also at the Graham Institute, we keep track of some of these statistics. We have over 800 faculty who've self-identified as sustainability experts. We have thousands of students working to advance sustainability. We have over 1,500 students and faculty who've been part of the co-curricular programs that Graham has done. And so I think the students have talked about some of the courses that really matter. I think I might say a little bit about the co-curricular programs that I think really contribute here. Some of them are at the Graham Institute. We have, for undergraduates, the Graham Scholars Program, and we have the Dow Fellows Program for graduate and professional students. And we also have a relatively new program called the Catalyst Leaders Circle Fellowship, which is actually open to graduate students across the entire state to work with communities in the state of Michigan, funded by the state government. But each of these programs has an applied dimension, like you were saying about project-based. They work with client organizations on the outside, so they're very real, practical, and immediate results of what the students are doing together. The other dimension across all these programs is their interdisciplinarity. You heard the provost talk about how many different schools and colleges are represented here today. At Graham, we try to bring together teams of students from all those different schools and colleges to do projects together, because we feel very strongly that sustainability challenges have to be addressed across the disciplines, and that in many positions that you're going to go into across the workforce, you will have to work in interdisciplinary teams. So that's something that's unique to us. I know if Peck was here, and he's very sorry he can't be here, but there would be several programs at C's that he would be flagging. One of them, I'm sure, is Professor Zint's own course on Act on Climate, the MOOC, that I think you heard a little bit about last night. C's has a certificate with the College of Engineering that Professor Rood had something to do with putting together, which is a way to, again, work across schools. And then just lots of courses, master's projects, and of course the Tishman Center. So I could go on.
Thank you. So thank you very much. As you all know, and I know those of you in the room know, the many amazing things that are happening. And I think that one of the key things we really need to do is highlight them more, because what we know is the students are having a hard time finding all these wonderful opportunities. So I think that's one of the spaces we need to work on and improve on. So we're moving to our next question, which is the vision question. You know, what is your vision for climate education at U of M moving forward? Where would you like U of M to see in 5 years? So who's interested in getting us started? And again, we don't have to just go one by one. You can also jump in. So who would like to start? Swati?
Yeah, I can get started. After attending so many classes and also the student breakout sessions yesterday, I have noticed that all of us are envisioning the same thing, but again, just looking at it in different perspectives. So one thing that I really would like to see in 5 years is to hopefully encourage students to participate in programs or activities to build on climate education and bring in their own perspectives, you know, through the schools or the course or their field of interest that they represent. And another interesting thing that I kind of learned about through one of our breakout sessions yesterday was how people, at least at U of M, would also want to incorporate our current university goals with what the community within Ann Arbor is also working towards when it comes to climate education and sustainability, and also reflect what we learn on campus to off-campus activities. And just going off of what Sam had also spoken about, how we what messages do we take away from what we're learning right now, and how we are able to incorporate it and blend it with what outside of school and within our personal lives. So I envision seeing a lot of integration happening within these 5 years. Hopefully getting more involvement, and also, sorry, I'm just blanking out here. But I think one of the main things that I also wanted to see was to make sustainability and climate education a core value, like how we envision DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, make sustainability a core value within each school, and hopefully set up a student committee within each school, and then have them all come together and discuss ideas and any innovations that they come up with, and hopefully bring them all together and incorporate it, so that it really does get solidified and imprinted as an important objective that the entire school wishes to see in one whole way. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Any reactions to what Swati just shared?
Hello? There we go. I wanted to build off something that you said about Ann Arbor and the community. I had a conversation with someone last night. Sorry, I don't remember your name if you're here. But about like community investment in the climate education that's going on at University of Michigan. There are people outside of the university that are interested in like the student leaders that we are producing in climate, and I think that's like something that I would really love to see, is like University of Michigan as like a producer of climate leaders in this space that can go out into this like next generation of the workforce, and that can only happen through like deep interdisciplinary learning in all of these areas. We talk a lot about breadth and depth in this class, and I think valuing both of those equally, both in the classroom and like giving opportunities for lived experiences while students are here in Ann Arbor, partnering with outside community organizations and giving that project-based learning that we talked about earlier. Is like people are interested. We have students here who are interested in working with people outside the university. We just need to facilitate that.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Reactions to what Rachel just shared, or another topic?
I mean, I definitely want to second the breadth and depth, and then also that interdisciplinary approach that Swati was talking about. I think when I first came into Michigan, I knew I had a general idea of what I wanted to do. I mean, I came from a small town where one of my teachers in high school was really interested in the environment, and that passion had really like ignited a flame inside of me. And I think that had carried over into college, but then I just didn't really know where to go after that. And I knew, like, one of the reasons I picked U of M was because I knew that there was a strong environmental program here, but I just didn't really know where to go. I mean, there's so many different lanes that you can take. There's so many different approaches to sustainability. I think that's one of the reasons I'm interested in the field, is because I know I can learn about one area and it can apply to 20 different areas. For instance, right now I'm working on business, but again, like I said, I'm also interested in psychology. I've taken classes in policy, because everything is related when it comes to climate. So I think when it comes to my vision for U of M in the future, it's preparing students for, or I guess giving them a better opportunity to engage in climate, or an easier opportunity to engage in climate. Like we said, these students are really interested and they want the opportunities, but how can we facilitate that in an easy way where it doesn't feel like it's an addition for them? I think that can end up being similar to what Swati said, where you gain perspective from all the different schools, or what are their visions of sustainability at their specific school, at their specific major, combining that into a central source and then providing that to students. So no matter what field they're coming from, if they have an interest in sustainability, they're able to come to this source, whether it's a site, whether it's a committee, and learn about different opportunities they have to engage, events, classes, co-curriculars, like we were saying before. So it doesn't feel like they're reaching for all of this information, so it's at a centralized source.
I think my vision for climate education moving forward is for, in the next 5 years, the university to fully implement the recommendations of the President's Commission on Carbon Neutrality on these issues. Several of us in the room were involved with the PCCN. I had the privilege of co-chairing it, and we had recommendations with regard to both curriculum and living learning labs. And I think that both of those would be great to see implemented. Curriculum, it's not one course requirement everywhere, but that each school and college bring it into the work they do, that every student comes out climate literate. I think the white coats example is a great one of putting that in the courses that they take. As far as living learning labs, I think this is an especially interesting area to go forward, where the operational side and the academic side come together. The operations are informed by our research expertise. Our students get to participate and learn by being part of that, and vice versa. There are several other institutions that we could use as models. UBC, Toronto, MIT have very intentional structures for making that happen, and I think that would be a good thing forward. The other thing I would say as far as vision is, as important as it is to educate our students and for them to graduate climate literate, the urgency of the climate problem is such that we have to be educating everybody now. And with respect to that, I think the Planet Blue Ambassadors program that we have here at Michigan is an important element. I'm excited that, again, as part of a PCCN recommendation, that program has been expanded to Flint and Dearborn campuses. And everybody in this room, if you're not yet a Planet Blue ambassador, go see Kelly Jones, because you can take the training. It's for faculty, staff, and students. Thanks.
Yes, I'm so excited that you brought up the recommendations and also all the different wonderful frameworks of different universities. I think that ties in well to my vision of the university. I think it's time to start enacting, maybe not even the next 5 years, maybe in the next 1 year, that we need to start enacting these recommendations now, because with the urgency of the climate crisis, it's not a time to play catch up, and it's time to be a leader in climate education. I mean, maybe there'll be a class at a different university about how University of Michigan has a framework for climate education. And I think most importantly, in enacting these recommendations and all these wonderful ideas that we're having throughout this event, that the university honors student voices in this transformative action, since students are going to be the ones impacted by climate change and also the ones with the solutions.
Anyone else in terms of vision for the future? Any other ideas that you want to share? Okay, then the next question is, based on what you know about the barriers to advancing climate education, what is it that you think students, faculty, and staff could do to overcome these barriers?
One thing that, one approach that I take, or the way that I'd like to look at it, is try and find your own perspective towards this issue. Why do you think, or how do you think climate change is going to affect your particular field of interest or your particular career path that you're taking? Because ultimately, we all know that as individuals, we usually don't really act up on something unless it affects us personally. But climate change is something that we have visual proof that it is happening and that it is going, unfortunately, not going to get any better unless we act on it. So don't wait for it to affect you in a way that it hopefully never should, and which is why a good way to get really involved and show your activism towards this is to look for ways to see how this is going to affect you or your field of interest, and try and find ways to see how you can incorporate changes to work on this together. And which is why I feel like so many of the initiatives that the university already has ultimately is working towards that, is to bring people together from these different schools and just to get different perspectives and to see, because we're ultimately working towards one issue, that is to save the planet that we want to live in. So I would say just try and make it as personal as possible, because that's the only way you are truly going to give in your 100% to find solutions and to create more innovative ideas to tackle climate change.
Thank you, Swati. Anyone else? Yeah, Miles?
I think education is such a broad, kind of all-encompassing term that really can start small. So education can be, helping your roommates understand how to compost, how to save energy in your house. And education can be talking to people that you would never think to talk to about climate solutions. And then as you start building that momentum and getting bigger and bigger groups together, the more people that are talking about this, the harder it is for people to ignore that this is something that, a big vocal group is really passionate about. You can hit the ground running now with one person and just, it'll snowball.
I can add on to both of those points, or at least bridge a little bit. Yeah, I think, again, education, being at a higher institution right now, we tend to think of education meaning curriculum or classes. And I think, again, we can break that down further by saying, how has it impacted you? Everybody has a story with how it's related to them so far, whether that's your hometown, some climate event that happened there, or where you plan to see yourself in the future, where are you planning on working, how might climate impact that location. Last night, during one of our breakout sessions, we were talking about place. Someone had brought up place, and I thought that was really interesting. We talk about all of these ideas of climate education, and sometimes they feel like they're a bubble above our head, but to ground ourselves a little bit more in, why are we doing this? What's the reason behind it? I think goes back to some fundamentals of connecting people with nature that sometimes we forget about, which I think is really interesting. So someone had mentioned a study abroad program where they were outside for months at a time, and that had really finally connected them back to nature and made them realize, oh, this is why I'm interested in climate education in the first place. So I think taking what is such a complex concept as climate education and pulling down to the root and the fundamentals of why does this matter to me in relationship to nature and hometown and the people who I care about from my home and the people I'm going to care about in my future home. I think that sharing those aspects of climate education with other people is another form of climate education that's not as formalized as a curriculum, but is just as impactful because it's actually more personal and is something that you can show a lot of passion about.
So one of the largest barriers, I think, in regards to climate education is inaction, whether that's I don't know what to do or I want to do something and I keep on getting pushback. And I think it creates a lot of paralysis, like you don't know what to do from there. And I read an article recently that really impacted me. It was regarding this barrier of inaction. And it says to, instead of asking what should I do, you should reframe the question to who am I and how am I related to all of this? And I think that once we go into conversation and into dialogue with each other about this question, and we can practice this idea of attunement, of feeling heard and respected by our classmates, by our peers, that is the first step in addressing climate education. I think once we support and listen and empower each other, that is the first step towards healing in regard to climate.
Yeah, I wanted to build off that a little bit in the inaction part. I think it's a bit intimidating to get involved for the first time in climate education, but I think so we need to emphasize a little bit here that you don't have to be an expert on the environment to incorporate it into your class. And I think we could do a good job at the university of building some structure, helping faculty and staff engage in this in a way that they feel comfortable engaging with it in their class with their students, give them support and backing on this so there is more to facilitate that kind of interaction there.
I just want to build on what you said. Part of, I think, a barrier is for faculty who are not engaged on a regular basis in climate change and sustainability is knowing what they need to know to change their classes, to bring sustainability into their courses. And there are a couple things there. One is access to that information, and the other is access to time. And so for the university to perhaps have some sort of fund that could provide course buyouts for giving faculty the time to develop new classes is a possibility. Another one would be to provide, find information or elements that professors elsewhere have built into their courses. And related to that, we are members of a couple networks of universities that work together on climate change. One is the UC3, the University Climate Change Coalition, which thanks to President Donor, we are now the leader of. Maybe there is some community of practice work that we could do together with our peers there. We are also founding members of the Midwest Climate Change Collaboration, MC3, and that's another place where there is already, I think, a group that's putting together a community of practice around climate education. So sharing what we do well with others will expand our impact, but also learning from others would be helpful. So I think those would be valuable. The other thing is, here, the Institute for Social Research has for almost a decade now done a survey called the Sustainability Cultural Indicators Program, or SCIP. And as we're thinking about the cultural changes that we need, and that's very much part of climate education, mining that data, looking at that information can help make more informed decisions about where we ought to go. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We actually have maybe just a few minutes for questions from the audience for the panelists. Yeah, in the far back.
Environmental justice, but discovered that because there are different emission systems, I I would be required to pay an additional $25,000 tuition. So one of my objectives has been to work with some student partners in the School of Social Work and other schools to figure out a way to make these cross-school enrollment in classes a little easier. So I was wondering, how might we reform graduate-level admissions, administrative and financial systems to facilitate cross-school student enrollment in various climate change and environmental justice classes?
We do not have the expertise on this panel to answer that question for you, but we will take that down and we will share that feedback. We do plan to submit a report of recommendations based on yesterday and today to the provost, to the deans, and the president. So thank you so much for raising that challenge and suggesting that we find a way to overcome that. And one option might be through blended learning opportunities and through coming together across the schools to offer maybe one program that can serve all of our students. It's just a creative idea, but, well, I hope you think it's creative. But thank you very much for that feedback, and we'll share it. Thank you. Yeah, there's another one over there. Thank you.
For the students, we have like the race and ethnicity requirement in LSA and SMT, School of Music, Theater, and Dance. Would something like that kind of designation on a course that says like it's a climate change designation, would something like that help you kind of funnel towards courses that, you know, help you know that that course has some kind of climate change initiative in it?
Okay. We've talked about several types of labels for classes, having some separate requirement, like the race and ethnicity one in LSA. We've talked about that a lot. We've also talked about, which model is it? In our class mostly, but the climate educator, climate leader, climate citizen. It's like 3 labels that are possible.
I'll help you out. So the University of Toronto has a very interesting model that we're going to talk about in one of the concurrent sessions on infusing climate education. And they have like a 3-tier model that you can become. They have a sustainability literacy. You complete certain requirements, whether curricular, non-curricular. Then you have a sustainability scholar, and then you have a sustainability leader. So I think the students really like the idea of a progression, that you don't just, take courses maybe, but you can actually develop a skill, a certification in this space. So obviously, in order to do that, you would need at minimum something like that, because you would need to know what courses could help fulfill that. But I think the request was for more, a pathway towards more competencies. Hold on.
I was just going to add that one of the challenges we discussed that would come with a label like that is how is one course serving both students who, 3 types of students. Students who that's piquing their interest, students who are taking that as a requirement, and then students who are very well versed in this research and this work. And how is that one course, because it has that label, going to be able to serve all 3 of those students in the best way possible? So it's definitely something that has a ton of pros and a ton of cons to it, but definitely is worth thinking about every way in which that will affect student registration.
This is really a question for the students, trying to amalgamate a bunch of the comments that were just made. What would you guys think about competency-based transcriptable certificate that could blend, as Michaela was gesturing to, both potentially course-based credit, but also competency-based credit for some of the other cool things you might do on campus or in the community? Would that be like desirable, undesirable?
I feel like, at least for graduate students, the opportunities to take graduate certificates is a really good a good approach to competency-based approaches. And I know that graduate certificates are also a way to blend coursework from different schools that circulate around a similar topic. Certificate programs for climate education that could just blend in climate-specific courses across different schools would probably be a really good, solution, or I wouldn't say solution, like an approach to get for students from a particular school to understand how other schools look at climate change and climate education. And going off of for the previous question as well, I know that one of the things that we did discuss in class was how we would want to introduce courses that wouldn't look like we're increasing the workload for a student by adding an extra requirement. So I guess one way to look at this, or one alternative, could also be select a few already existing courses and just include topics of climate change and the importance of climate education for that particular course. And so for people to learn it through that would also help them think according to think along those lines with the coursework that they're already doing or the major that they're already pursuing, and that they wouldn't want to look at it as an extra workload.
Anyone else? We did, by the way, in the concurrent session, we will introduce a framework, a competency framework. In every session, we sort of think in terms of competencies, in terms of the approach that we're proposing. Thank you.
Okay, so we have two final questions, one over here and one over there.
My question relates to, as I walk around or as I hear you talk, a lot of the conversation keeps shifting between climate education and sustainability education. And in my own mind, like I've shifted in my own teaching from talking about climate change to talking about global change, in which case all sorts of sustainability solutions would apply. And I love this idea of a centralized source of opportunities related to climate education. And obviously this is a climate education workshop we're having. But does it dilute that to call it sustainability education? How do you as a student see the difference in terms of how it would be marketed to other students? Is it less appealing if it's about sustainability rather than specifically climate education? Or any other thoughts on that kind of umbrella versus the specificity?
Maggie's also in our class, so thank you for coming up here.
That's something that I thought about in class, and at some point I was like, wait, can we define climate education, sustainability education, environmental education? They're all important, they're all interconnected. And what I sort of came to understand with the materials that we were working with in class was that given the extreme, acute, immediate need for action on specifically addressing the climate crisis, that was where this conversation was going. But I think what we're talking about in terms of climate education can then be extrapolated or modeled or crossed into those other areas. And if we're thinking about our vision, maybe our 5-year vision really focused on climate crisis, but then once we're there, how can we build that out so that we're eventually talking about sustainability and justice in a very holistic way.
Thank you, Maggie. One last question.
This is kind of less of a question and just kind of asking for your guys' thoughts. I was talking yesterday after leaving yesterday night with my roommate, and she's a computer science major here at the University of Michigan. And we started talking about our audits and stuff like that and the credits that she has required for natural science. And it started made me think, because she was like, why do I have to take this many credits when this is not the field I'm going into? And she really cares about the environment too, but even just that idea of a requirement kind of threw her off. And so an idea for me is, like you guys were talking about individual classes, instead of maybe having the 7 credits that are for natural science, maybe you include part of that 7 credits as a certain class within their field that connects them back to this climate change problem, and make that a required course for their major, and lower the natural science credit because you have that other class that's required that they're interested in. And I think that connecting those people with something that they're interested in back to the larger problem will really get more people involved specifically, because as you guys were saying, the climate crisis and sustainability kind of connects to every field. The only class that I'm taking that is so interdisciplinary, I'm currently taking Environment 208 with Sarah Soderstrom, and that's the only class that I've taken so far here at the university that's allowed such a wide variety of students to take it, because it crosses over between the business school, stuff like that. And so having that experience and getting to hear the different perspectives of students in that course has really provided me with the ideas that maybe really centering like the audits and stuff like that to the students is something the university can be doing to ensure that they're bridging this gap.
Well, thank you very much. I think that was more of a comment rather than a question, but we love it, and thank you so much. And I do want to say that there are universities, so there's a university, just in response, Leuphana in Germany, where in their first year, all students, all freshmen are engaged in a class like Sarah's. And so, where you have, a local environmental issue, and in this case it's Sarah and previously Mike, who's also here with us. Mike started it all, where, the students are engaged in their first year in an interdisciplinary environmental challenge, regardless of their major. And I know the students there go to that university partly because of that. So there are interesting models out there along the lines of what you're suggesting. So thank you for that comment. Please extend your thanks to our panel members here and these wonderful students, as well as Jennifer. Thank you. So with that, Melinda will tell us what's next.
Good morning. My name is Melinda Matney, and I serve as Managing Director for Educational Development and Assessment Services within the Center for Research on Learning and Teaching. Among many hats I have, I'm also a Planet Blue ambassador. So, I can assure you that that is a very easy and worthwhile thing to do. That was a delightful conversation, and can we have one more hand for our student panelists in particular? They were amazing. So my job here is to share with you a little bit about your next conversations, or colloquially, to tell you where to go. So we are going to do that. So on your name tags, each of you, if you flip them over, I don't have a dot, but you do. So you should all have colored dots on the back of your name tags. Those dots correspond to where you are going to be going. So those of you with a red name tag dot will be discussing faculty and staff professional development. And you'll be going to Anderson ABC on the first floor. Debbie Lichty will be serving as your CRLT facilitator. Those of you with a yellow dot on your name tag will be discussing transforming U of M into a campus living lab. That will be in Anderson D, also on the first floor, with Christy Bean as your facilitator. Those of you with a green name tag will be discussing integrating climate education and sustainability into all U of M curriculum. That will be in the pond room on the first floor with Deb Meislish as a CRLT facilitator. And those of you with a blue name tag will be discussing supporting student success. and you will have Munir Khalid as a CRLT facilitator. You will be in rooms 2210 A and B, just down the hall here. Each discussion will start with a brief synopsis of some of the things that the class has been learning as they've been aggregating all of these reports that have been happening from various task forces across campus. Michaela Zent's class has been really skilled in creating a meta-analysis into something digestible that we can all work with. And they will be very helpful in terms of sharing with you your particular topic of the day. What we ask of your conversations is that your conversations result in at least 3 to 5 actionable steps. What would be the next step to do to enact the topic of the room? So it's not the highest level vision, it's what do we do next? Some rooms, I have a feeling, are going to get very animated and may have more than 3 to 5 actionable items. Great, we want them all. What's going to happen is you are going to be putting those actionable items on poster-sized Post-its. And we're going to be having a gallery walk in this area where you currently see some of these posters now. So everybody here at the Provost Seminar will have the opportunity to see and also to comment on the ideas that you generate. All of these are going to be taken after the Provost Seminar for really thinking about next steps, thinking about some broader planning about what we do next. Each room is going to have a mixture of students, faculty, and staff. And this is an exciting opportunity because oftentimes what is blindingly apparent to one group is completely missing for another. And so this will be an opportunity for you to see multiple perspectives of similar issues and to really talk through them. My experience of working with everybody involved in this is that there is a lot of passion and a lot of knowledge and also a lot of nuance of the various areas of the university that are affected by all of these conversations, which are them all. So I look forward to seeing what you all co-create together. And for now, you have about 10 minutes to get some more coffee, grab a bagel, take a break on the way to your room. And happy talking.